They say blood is thicker than water, but what if the one person standing between you and your destiny is the family you never knew you had? What if everything you thought about power, privilege, and second chances was wrong? We've all felt underestimated, or had a boss who was completely out of touch. But imagine if the stakes were your entire future, and the person you had to fight was connected to you by a secret that could shatter everything. This is a story that challenges the very idea of what it means to earn your place in the world. Prepare yourself for the story of Jonathan Cox, a billionaire's son given one last ultimatum: save the family's failing hotel or be cut off for good. It sounds like a classic recipe for disaster, doesn't it? A spoiled heir destined to fail. But the real drama isn't the peeling paint or the empty rooms. The real drama is in the kitchen, where the brilliant, non-nonsense executive chef, Aubrey White, holds the staff's loyalty and refuses to bow to his new, clueless authority. But here is the unbelievable twist that changes everything. Their intense rivalry is built on a secret that has been buried for over 20 years. She isn't just a disgruntled employee threatening to quit, she's fighting a battle that is deeply personal. Because the arrogant new boss she despises, the man she is challenging at every turn, is the father she never knew. A hidden paternity is about to collide with a desperate heir's redemption arc. This story is far more than just a shocking secret daughter. It's a blueprint for anyone who has ever felt like they needed to start over. It holds the key to a powerful truth sometimes. Our deepest wounds are the very things that lead to our most profound growth. It's about how redemption through work can transform a person from the inside out, and how a second chance family can be forged in the most unexpected of circumstances. Before we dive into this incredible journey of from rivalry to reunion, I want you to take a moment and think about your own life. Is there a connection you wish you could heal, or a past mistake you wish you could undo? This story will touch that part of your soul, I guarantee it. It's a powerful reminder that it's never too late to face the truth, to rebuild what's broken, and to finally become the person you were always meant to be. So get comfortable, because this story is an emotional roller coaster. As we begin, do me a favor and follow our channel so you never miss powerful stories like this one. Share this video with someone who appreciates a tale of family and transformation. And be sure to comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from. Now let the hotel drama unfolds. Well, let's talk about getting backed into a corner. We've all been there, haven't we? That moment when the universe, or in this case, a titan of industry for a father, tells you, this is it. Sink or swim. For Jonathan Cox, this wasn't just another talking toe. It was the last stop on a long train of screw-ups. He was handed the keys to the once prestigious Elysian Grand, now a ghost of its former self. This wasn't a gift, it was an ultimatum. A final desperate play in a long game of legacy versus loyalty, where his loyalty to the family name was being seriously questioned. You see, a person's true character isn't forged in the easy times, my friend. It's carved out by the pressure of the hard times. Jonathan had lived a life cushioned by wealth, a life where problems were solved with a phone call, not with grit. Handing him a failing hotel was like giving a paintbrush to someone who's never seen a canvas and asking for a masterpiece. His father knew it too. This wasn't about saving the hotel, not really. It was a high-stakes test to see if a Billionaire'S son transformed was even a remote possibility, or if the Cox legacy would end with a whimper. Think about it. How many times do we get a chance to completely redefine who we are? It's a terrifying and exhilarating thought. Most people have to create these opportunities for themselves through sheer will. You might do it by starting that small business you dream of, or by finally writing that book you've got inside you. For Jonathan, the opportunity was handed to him on a tarnished silver platter. The Elysian Grand wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was a symbol of his last chance, a physical manifestation of his potential for a heir's redemption arc. The weight of that is heavier than any portfolio. It's easy to judge a guy like Jonathan Cox from the outside. Spoiled, entitled, out of touch, and you wouldn't be wrong. But there's a flicker of something else in these situations, a spark of defiance. Sometimes, the greatest motivation comes from everyone expecting you to fail. It's a strange kind of gift. The world is essentially challenging you, saying, "Prove me wrong." The stage was set for a spectacular failure or a legendary comeback. This was where the prelude to a potential second chance family would begin, though. He had no idea of the scale of the impending drama. So he packed his designer bags, his head full of vague, half-baked ideas about synergy and disruption, head overheard at cocktail parties. He wasn't thinking about spreadsheets or staff morale. He was thinking about the embarrassment of failure and the sweet, sweet taste of proving his father wrong. He had no clue that walking into the Elysian Grand wasn't just a career move. It was a step toward a collision with his own past, a past he didn't even know existed, setting the scene for a dramatic hotel drama unfolds. What could go wrong when you mix arrogance with ignorance? He saw this as a punishment, a temporary exile from his real life of parties and leisure. The plan was simple: show up, bark a few orders, use his father's money to patch the most obvious holes, and get out. The concept of redemption through work was as foreign to him as a budget airline. He didn't understand the soul of the place or the people who kept its heart beating. Jonathan was about to learn that you can't renovate a legacy with just money. It requires a currency he was completely broke in respect. You know that feeling when a new boss comes in and you can just tell they don't have a clue? That was the collective sigh that echoed through the halls of the Elysian Grand on Jonathan's first day. He strode in like he owned the place, which, technically, his family did, but with none of the quiet authority that earns respect. He saw peeling paint and dusty chandeliers, not the weary pride in the eyes of the staff who had kept the lights on. The impending hotel drama unfolds was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and he was the one holding it. His first executive decision was, to put it mildly, a doozy. He decided the classic mahogany Nipponese lobby was too old-fashioned and ordered it to be repainted in a sterile, minimalist white. He did this without consulting a single person, not the hotel manager, not the interior designer, and certainly not the staff who cherished the hotel's history. He was trying to put his stamp on the place, but all he was doing was proving his own incompetence. This wasn't a strategy, it was a toddler throwing toys out of the prom, a clear sign that the road to becoming a billionaire's son transformed was going to be a long one. Then came the menu overhaul. Without ever tasting the food or speaking to the chef, he declared the restaurant's award-winning classic cuisine stale. He wanted to replace it with trendy, overpriced fusion dishes he'd seen on social media. This decision was a direct missile aimed at the heart of the hotel, and it was about to reveal the truth behind the kitchen and the formidable power of its guardian. Jonathan thought he was fixing problems, but he was creating bigger ones, showing a profound misunderstanding of legacy versus loyalty. The staff, a tight-knit group who considered themselves a family, watched with a mixture of horror and outrage. These weren't just jobs for many, this was their life's work. They had weathered economic storms and changing tastes, held together by shared purpose. Jonathan's impulsive changes felt like a personal attack on their dedication. He was a whirlwind of bad ideas, alienating the very people he needed most. It was a textbook example of how not to lead, a painful foreshadowing of a looming estranged family twist he couldn't even fathom. He didn't listen, he only dictated. He changed shift schedules, upsetting work-life balances that had been in place. For years, he questioned long-standing vendor relationships to save a few pennies, ignorant of the loyalty they ensured. Each move was a clumsy step on a dance floor where he didn't know the music. He was completely unaware that his every arrogant action was being meticulously observed by one person in particular, the daughter he never knew, who was growing more disappointed by the second. The simmering resentment was quickly approaching a boiling point. An organization is like a body. The person at the top is the head, but the staff is the heart. And Jonathan was giving the heart of the Elysian Grand every reason to stop beating for him. He was a ship's captain who not only didn't know how to navigate, but was actively trying to drill holes in the hull. Something had to give, and it was about to. The first real challenge to his authority was about to step out of the steam-filled chaos of the kitchen. Enter Aubrey White. If Jonathan was a storm of chaotic energy, Aubrey was the calm, unmovable mountain at the center of it. As the executive chef, she ran her kitchen with precision, discipline, and a passion that bordered on religious fervor. When Jonathan's ridiculous memo about the new menu landed on her steel prep table, it wasn't just an insult, it was a declaration of war. The hotel drama unfolds, was about to get a main character who wasn't afraid to fight back, and she held all the cards. The confrontation happened in the heart of her domain, the kitchen. Jonathan, looking ridiculously out of place in his $1,000 suit amidst the clatter of pots and pans, tried to assert his authority. He spoke of brand identity and market trends. Aubrey White simply wiped her hands on her apron, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "You have no idea what you're talking about." The silence that followed was deafening. This was the moment the truth behind the kitchen became crystal clear. It was her kingdom, and he was trespassing. He stammered, he blustered, he pulled the "my family owns this hotel" card. It didn't work. Aubrey was unimpressed by his name or his money. She had built her reputation on pure skill and hard work, a testament to redemption through work. She told him plainly that if he tried to force these changes, she would walk, and she wouldn't be walking alone. This wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. The loyalty of the entire kitchen staff and much of the hotel belonged to her, not to him. This was legacy versus loyalty in its purest form. This clash was more than just a disagreement over scallops versus foam. It was a collision of two completely different worlds and philosophies. Jonathan's world was one of inherited privilege, where respect was demanded, not earned. Aubrey's world was a meritocracy, where your worth was measured by the quality of your work and the strength of your character. This initial battle was the first real test of his supposed heir's redemption arc, and he was failing it spectacularly, completely oblivious to the real reason for the tension. Aubrey's ultimatum hung in the air, her or his half-baked ideas. For the first time, Jonathan was faced with a consequence he couldn't just throw money at. Losing an employee was one thing, losing the heart and soul of the hotel's dining experience was a catastrophe he couldn't spin. He was furious, embarrassed, and for a fleeting second, utterly lost. He had no idea this fiery, defiant chef was connected to him in a way that would rewrite his entire existence, a prelude to a stunning father-daughter surprise. He saw her as an obstacle, a stubborn employee. He didn't see the years of quiet observation that had led to this moment, or the deep, personal disappointment fueling her defiance. He dismissed her, stormed out of the kitchen, and started plotting how to get her fired, not realizing he was trying to fire the only person who could truly help him. The lines were drawn, and a difficult journey from rivalry to reunion had just begun, though reunion was the furthest thing from either of their minds. Aubrey White became the unofficial leader of the resistance. It wasn't a role she sought, but one she earned. While Jonathan tried to rule from a detached, sterile office, Aubrey was in the trenches. She knew the names of the dishwasher's kids. She knew the pastry chef's personal struggles. She knew the precise amount of coffee the concierge needed to get through a double shift. Her leadership was built on empathy, a concept completely foreign to Jonathan Cox. The staff's loyalty to her wasn't just professional, it was personal. She challenged his arrogance not with loud arguments, but with quiet competence. When he demanded reports she knew were useless, she'd provide them perfectly. executed, along with a second report showing what he should be asking for. It was a masterclass in passive resistance. She was showing him, in no uncertain terms, that he was out of his depth. This wasn't just about saving her menu, it was about protecting her work family from his incompetence. The entire situation was a slow burn fuse leading to an inevitable, estranged family twist. Think of it like this: a truly great leader is like the captain of a ship who knows every rivet and rope. They inspire trust because the crew knows they can navigate any storm. Aubrey was that captain. Jonathan was a passenger who had stolen the captain's hat. The staff saw this clear as day. Her holding their loyalty wasn't a power play, it was the natural order of things. She was the one embodying the hotel's legacy, while Jonathan was just a placeholder for the name on the building. A stark illustration of legacy versus loyalty. His attempts to undermine her backfired spectacularly. He tried to go over her head, speaking directly to her sous chefs, only to be met with polite but firm refusals to listen. They would just say, "You should speak with Chef White about that." It must have been infuriating for him. He was the boss, the owner's son, yet his authority was completely neutered by a chef in a white coat. He didn't understand that respect is a currency you earn, not inherit. A key lesson in his painful heir's redemption arc. Every day was a new lesson in his own irrelevance. He would walk through the hotel and staff would be polite, but cool. The moment Aubrey walked by, they would light up, sharing a joke or a quick knowing glance. She was the sun they all orbited, while he was a distant, cold moon. He was witnessing a functional, loyal teamwork around him, and he hated it. Unbeknownst to him, he was being judged on a scale far more personal than professional by the daughter he never knew. This power struggle was the heart of the hotel drama unfolds. It was a battle for the soul of the Elysian Grand, Jonathan believed. His vision was the future, but his vision was hollow. Aubrey knew the hotel's strength was its people and its history. She wasn't just fighting for a menu or for her job, she was fighting to protect a home. And she was holding a secret that made this fight profoundly, tragically personal. And here lies the heart of the matter, the secret that changes everything. This entire conflict, this intense battle of wills between the spoiled heir and the defiant chef, was built on a foundation of hidden paternity. Aubrey White wasn't just a brilliant and stubborn employee who happened to work at her estranged father's hotel. She was there because he was there. Every sharp word, every look of defiance, every challenge to his authority was layered with the pain and curiosity of a daughter observing a father who was a complete stranger. This is the ultimate secret. Daughter reveal, unfolding in slow motion right before our eyes, yet completely invisible to one of the main characters, Jonathan. He saw a rival, an obstacle. He had no idea he was looking at his own flesh and blood, the result of a long-forgotten relationship from his wilder college days. He couldn't see the faint echo of his own stubborn chin in hers, or recognize the fierce determination that he too possessed deep down. The irony was so thick it was almost cruel. Imagine the emotional weight Aubrey was carrying. Every day, she would go to work and face the man whose absence had shaped her entire life. She was living a dual existence: the competent, no-nonsense chef in public, and the silently observant, often wounded, daughter in private. This incredible estranged family twist was her daily reality. She saw his immaturity, his arrogance, and felt a profound sense of disappointment that this was the man who was her father. This wasn't just a job for her. It was a reconnaissance, mission into her own history. She had the chance to see him unfiltered, not as a father, but as a man. And frankly, she wasn't impressed. The entire situation adds an incredible depth to the hotel drama unfolds, transforming it from a simple workplace conflict into a deeply personal quest for truth. The truth behind the kitchen was far more complex than just recipes and staff schedules. It was the search for a ghost. Her presence there wasn't an accident. It was a calculated choice. She was seeking answers that her mother could never fully provide. Who was Jonathan Cox really? Was there anything redeemable in the man who never knew she existed? This quest was the first uncertain step toward a potential second chance family, though the path was fraught with his ignorance and her disappointment. She was watching him, waiting, and wondering if he could ever become the man he was supposed to be. He was fighting a battle with an employee while she was grappling with the ghost of a father. He was annoyed by her insubordination. She was heartbroken by his character. This profound misunderstanding was the pivot upon which the entire story turned. He was trying to build a legacy while she was confronting the one he had unknowingly left behind years ago. The stage was set for a father-daughter surprise of epic proportions, and he was the only one in the theater who didn't have a clue to understand. Aubrey's secret. You have to rewind the clock. Go back to a time of cheap beer, loud music, and the fleeting, intense relationships that only happen in college. Jonathan Cox wasn't an heir back then, just a charming, reckless guy from a wealthy family. He met a bright, ambitious art student, and for a few whirlwind months, they were inseparable. But like most campus romances, it had an expiration date. He was careless with her heart, and when it ended abruptly. He moved on without a second thought. But he left something behind, a consequence he never knew about. Her mother, a proud and independent woman, discovered she was pregnant shortly after he disappeared from her life. She looked at her future and made a hard choice. She saw the kind of man Jonathan was then: irresponsible, flighty, not father material. Why would she subject her child to a life of potential rejection, or being treated as a footnote in a billionaire's messy life? So she chose to protect her daughter. This was the origin of the hidden paternity. She never told him. She packed up her dreams, moved away, and built a life for herself and for Aubrey. It wasn't an easy path, but it was hers. She told Aubrey stories about her father, but they were vague sketches, not a full portrait. The decision was born of love, a desire to shield her child from the very immaturity that Aubrey was now witnessing firsthand at the Elysian Grand. This long-held secret is the core of the estranged family twist that defines their current situation. Think of the strength that must have taken to raise a child on your own, knowing that the father is out there, living a completely different, luxurious life, oblivious to the existence of his own daughter. This wasn't about revenge or malice, it was a preemptive act of maternal protection. The knowledge of the daughter he never knew was a burden the mother carried alone for years, all to give Aubrey a shot at a stable, loving childhood, free from the drama of the Cox family. This backstory is crucial because it explains Aubrey's conflicted heart. She doesn't hate Jonathan, not really. How can you hate a ghost? But she's deeply resentful of the man-child he appears to be, because it validates her mother's difficult decision all those years ago. It justifies the secret. Seeing him in action makes her question if he could ever be worthy of being called father, a key emotional hurdle on the path to any potential forgiveness and family. So when Aubrey decided to take the job at the hotel, it was with her mother's hesitant blessing. It was a chance for Aubrey to find her own answers, to see for herself the man her mother had tried to protect her from. The secret wasn't just a plot point, it was the foundation of Aubrey's identity. And now, that foundation was being shaken every day by the clueless man who ordered her around, the man who held the other half of her DNA. So Aubrey's presence at the Elysian Grand was no coincidence. It was a deliberate, calculated move. After her mother finally told her the whole story, a burning curiosity took root in Aubrey's soul. It's one thing to hear about your father, it's another thing entirely to have the chance to see him in his natural habitat. She saw the job opening for executive chef as a sign, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get answers. This was her covert operation, a mission to observe the man behind the myth, the daughter he never knew hiding in plain sight. She didn't come in with a grand plan for a dramatic secret daughter reveal. Not at all. Her goal was much quieter, more analytical. She wanted to watch him. How did he treat people? Did he have any integrity? Was there any kindness beneath the polished, spoiled exterior? She became a quiet anthropologist, studying a strange, new species, her own father. The job gave her a front row seat to his character, or lack thereof. The hotel drama unfolds was for her a research project. It's like reading a book about a historical figure and then getting a time machine to go back and see if the book was right. Aubrey had spent her life with a father-shaped hole, filled in by her mother's stories and her own imagination. Now she could see the real thing. She watched him interact with the staff, saw his impulsive decisions, and listened to his arrogant pronouncements. Every observation was a piece of a puzzle she was trying to solve, the puzzle of her own origins and the hidden paternity that defined her. This quiet observation was, in its own way, a form of redemption through work. She poured her energy and focus into her job, becoming the best chef she could be, all while conducting this deeply personal investigation. Her excellence in the kitchen was her shield, her armor. It gave her a legitimate reason to be there, a way to interact with him on a professional level, all while her mind was racing with personal questions. She was hiding the biggest secret of all right under the guise of her professional duties. But her findings were, to put it mildly, disheartening. The man she observed was shallow, immature, and entitled. This wasn't the father she might have secretly hoped for. This was a disappointment. The Jonathan Cox she saw confirmed all her mother's worst fears from 20 years ago. The possibility of ever forming a second-chance family seemed to shrink. With every passing day, with every foolish decision he made, she was a ghost in his machine, a variable he never knew existed. He was focused on his superficial battle of legacy versus loyalty, trying to tame a hotel he didn't understand. He had no idea the real test of his character wasn't coming from his father or the balance sheets, but from the piercing, observant eyes of the daughter he never knew was judging his every move from across the pass. There's a unique kind of heartache that comes from meeting a hero and finding out they have feet of clay. Now imagine that hero is your father. For Aubrey, every day was a fresh wave of disappointment. The immature, arrogant Mansfield she saw, fumbling his way through the hotel's revival, was a far cry from any idealized version she might have held. This daily dose of reality fueled a powerful internal debate. What's the point? Why go through with a secret daughter reveal if this is all he is? This is where the estranged family twist gets really painful. She held a life-altering truth in her hands, a truth that could shatter his world. But what for? To connect with a man who couldn't even manage his own staff with basic decency? To introduce herself as the daughter of someone she didn't even respect? The debate raged within her. Part of her wanted to just quit, to walk away and leave him to his own self-made mess, preserving the fragile peace of her own life. She would watch him from the kitchen, a barrier of steel and steam between them, and weigh her options. Revealing the truth would unleash chaos. It would trigger a massive hotel drama unfolds, likely involving his powerful father and the entire Cox dynasty. Was she prepared for that? Was it worth blowing up her life and his for a man who seemed so undeserving? The thought of forgiveness and family felt like a fantasy when she looked at the real-life Jonathan Cox. This dilemma showcases the emotional core of her journey. She came seeking answers, and she got them. The problem was, she didn't like the answers. The immaturity he displayed made her question her entire purpose for being there. It made her protective of her mother's original decision. Maybe her mom was right all along. Maybe some truths are better left buried, and some family ties are better left unwoven. The potential for a father-daughter surprise seemed less like a heartwarming reunion and more like a recipe for disaster. Yet, a small, stubborn part of her hesitated. The part that wondered if there was something more beneath the surface. Was this arrogant persona a defense mechanism? Was there a better man buried under all that privilege? This sliver of hope was the only thing keeping her from walking out the door. It was the faint, flickering possibility of a heir's redemption arc, a chance for him to become someone worthy of the truth she held. So she stayed, caught in this painful limbo. She was a judge, jury, and silent witness to the trial of Jonathan. Cox's character. Her decision to reveal her identity or to disappear from his life forever hinged entirely on him. He had no idea that his every action was pushing her closer to, or further from, revealing the secret of the daughter he never knew. You know, sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can start climbing back up. For Jonathan Cox, rock bottom wasn't a financial figure, it was a feeling of utter irrelevance and failure in his own hotel. The silent treatment from the staff, the open defiance from his star chef, Aubrey, and the complete lack of progress started to chip away at his thick armor of arrogance. For the first time in his life, Jonathan was truly losing, and he didn't know how to fix it. And that, my friend, is where change begins. The shift wasn't a sudden epiphany. It was slow, almost imperceptible at first. It started when he overheard a conversation between two housekeepers talking about how a scheduling change Head made meant one of them couldn't pick up her kid from school. He didn't react, he just listened. And later that day, the old schedule was quietly reinstated. It was a small concession, but it was the first crack in the dam. The heir's redemption arc doesn't start with a bang, it starts with a whisper of humility. He began to do something Head never done before: wander. Not like a boss inspecting, but like someone who was lost. He'd stand in the laundry room and listen to the staff gossip. He'd sit at the bar late at night and chat with the bartender. He started asking questions instead of giving orders. This was the beginning of his redemption through work, not by doing the work himself, but by finally respecting the people who did. He was slowly, painfully learning to listen. This subtle change didn't go unnoticed. The staff, initially suspicious, started to see a different side of him, a flicker of vulnerability. He asked the veteran concierge for his opinion on the lobby, decor, and actually took his advice. He admitted to the head of maintenance that he had no idea how the boiler system worked. These small acts of humility began to thaw the icy atmosphere in the hotel. A billionaire's son transformed might not be a lost cause after all. Aubrey watched all of this from her kitchen with cautious curiosity. She saw him talking to her dishwashers not as a boss, but as just a person. She saw him taste one of her stale classic dishes when he thought no one was looking, and she saw a flicker of something: surprise, respect, in his eyes. It was confusing. This wasn't the same arrogant fool who had stormed into her kitchen weeks ago. Her internal debate about the secret daughter reveal just got a lot more complicated. He was still clumsy, still prone to saying the wrong thing. This wasn't a fairy tale transformation, but it was real. It was the painful, awkward process of a man unlearning a lifetime of privilege. He was starting to care about the legacy, not just his name on it. He didn't know it, but by starting to heal the wounds of his hotel, he was taking the first step toward healing old wounds he didn't even know existed. Respect isn't a gift, it's a wage earned through action. For weeks, Aubrey White had seen Jonathan Cox as a walking disaster, an embodiment of everything she resented about her hidden paternity. But now she was seeing something else. She saw him stay late, not in his office, but in the hotel lobby, just watching, absorbing the rhythm of the place. She saw him carry a heavy box for an elderly staff member. These weren't grand gestures. They were small, quiet acts of a man who was finally starting to see beyond himself. Her initial stance of rigid defiance began to soften. It was a reluctant shift, one she almost fought against. Respecting him complicated things. It was easier when he was just a simple villain in her life story. But this new, evolving Jonathan, He was harder to define and harder to dismiss. The potential for a real heir's redemption arc was starting to look less like a fantasy and more like a difficult, emerging reality. She was impressed, and it annoyed her. The turning point came during a supplier crisis. A key vendor for her kitchen went bankrupt overnight, threatening the entire weekend service. The old Jonathan would have blamed her or thrown money at the problem. The new Jonathan rolled up his sleeves literally and got on the phone. He spent all night with her in her office, calling every contact he had, not as a billionaire's son pulling strings, but as a partner trying to solve a problem. This was the first tentative step from rivalry to reunion. In the wee hours of the morning, surrounded by empty coffee cups, they found a solution. And in that moment of shared victory, Aubrey looked at him, truly looked at him, and felt an unfamiliar emotion, a flicker of pride. He hadn't commanded, he had collaborated. He hadn't dictated, he had listened. He was earning her respect, one exhausting phone call at a time. The truth behind the kitchen was that she could no longer deny his effort. This growing respect threw her into emotional turmoil. If he could change, if he could become this presumptuous, responsible, caring man, what did that mean for her? What did it mean for the secret she was holding? The idea of a father-daughter surprise no longer felt like a threat, but like a fragile, terrifying possibility. Her mental image of him was being forcibly redrawn, and she wasn't sure she was ready for it. She was starting to see that his journey of redemption through work wasn't just about saving a hotel, it was about saving himself. And as she watched him try, a reluctant hope began to bloom in her chest. A hope that maybe, just maybe, a second-chance family wasn't an impossible dream. He was still the man who was absent for her whole life, but for the first time, she wondered if he was becoming a man worth knowing. With a truce declared and a fragile bridge of respect built between them, the real work began. The dynamic shifted from a cold war to a cautious collaboration. Jonathan and Aubrey became an unlikely team, the driving force behind the hotel's rebirth. He had the vision tempered with humility, and she had the practical, grounded knowledge of what made the hotel tick. Their working sessions were a mix of his bluesky ideas and her reality checks, a perfect example of their slow journey from rivalry to reunion. They decided the hotel didn't need a sterile, modern makeover. It needed to embrace its soul. Their new brand concept was Modern Legacy. They would restore the classic elegance Jonathan had once despised, but with updated amenities. And a world-class experience, the centerpiece. Aubrey's restaurant, which they rebranded as the Chef's Table, a celebration of the very classic cuisine Jonathan had once tried to destroy. This was his biggest concession, a clear sign that the billionaire's son transformed was real. It was in these long hours, huddled over design plans and marketing strategies, that the walls truly started to come down. They argued, they laughed, they challenged each other. Jonathan learned the names of her line cooks. Aubrey learned about the immense pressure Jonathan was under from his father. They were no longer just a boss and an employee, they were partners. In a high-stakes venture, the hotel drama unfolds was now a creative process, not a destructive one. This collaboration was a form of redemption through work for both of them. For him, it was about proving he was more than his name. For her, it was about channeling her passion into something tangible, all while navigating the emotional minefield of working alongside her secret father. She saw him praise her staff, defend her budget, and trust her judgment. Each action was another brick in the foundation of a new, undefined relationship. They launched a series of weekend tasting events, a soft relaunch to build buzz. Jonathan, the former party boy, was the perfect host, charming guests and telling them the story of the hotel's revival. Aubrey, once hidden in the kitchen, was coaxed out to take a bow, receiving standing ovations. They were a team, and as she watched him work the room, not with arrogance but with genuine pride in what they were building, The idea of a second chance family felt closer than ever. He still didn't know the truth. He still didn't know that the brilliant partner by his side was the daughter he never knew. But their shared purpose was creating a bond that was deeper than a professional one. They were saving the hotel together, and in doing so, they were unknowingly building the framework for a relationship, preparing the ground for the eventual earth-shattering secret daughter reveal. There are moments in life, little windows of clarity, where you see a person not for who they are, but for who they could be. For Aubrey, these moments started happening more and more frequently. It would be something small. The way Jonathan knelt down to talk to a guest's young child, his voice soft and gentle. Or the fierce pride in his eyes when he watched her receive praise for a new dish. In these glimpses, she saw a man she didn't recognize, a kind, protective, and deeply caring man. She started seeing the father he might have been. The man who would have taught her how to ride a bike, who would have scared away monsters under the bed. This was a dangerous and heartbreaking path for her mind to wander down. It was one thing to respect him as a colleague, but it was another thing entirely to mourn the father he never was. This was the tragic heart of the estranged family twist, seeing the potential for a past that could never be reclaimed. One evening, after a grueling 16-hour day, she found him asleep on the couch in his office, a half-finished financial projection resting on his chest. He looked younger, more vulnerable. Not the billionaire heir, not the boss, just a tired man, trying his best. The sight stirred a profound protective instinct in her. She quietly draped a blanket over him. In that moment, the weight of the hidden paternity felt heavier than ever. He was right there, and yet a universe away. These glimpses made her mission infinitely more complex. Her anger had been a shield, but it was dissolving, being replaced by a confusing mix of affection and sorrow. How could she continue to keep such a monumental secret from this man who was trying so hard? The thought of the impending father-daughter surprise filled her with both hope and dread. It could be the beginning of everything, or it could shatter the fragile peace they had built. The hotel was their shared child, in a way. They were nurturing it, pouring all their energy into its success. Through this shared project, she was getting to know him in a way she never could have with a simple reveal. She was seeing his character unfold organically, a true heir's redemption arc in motion. She saw how he defended her to his own father, insisting her vision was key to the hotel's success, a powerful moment in their shifting dynamic of legacy versus loyalty. She was seeing the man he was becoming, and it was a man she could admire. A man she could, perhaps even love as a father. This realization was both a comfort and a terror. The question was no longer if she should tell him, but when. The man he was now was someone who deserved to know about the daughter he never knew. The only question was whether the truth would bring them together or tear them apart. The moment had to be perfect, but life rarely offers perfection. It offers chaos, and truth is often born from it. The reveal didn't happen in a quiet office or over a planned dinner. It happened late one night in the kitchen, their sanctuary. After a massive Sextaire first fully booked weekend since the rebranding. They were exhausted, exhilarated, and emotionally raw. The air was thick with adrenaline and the smell of success. It was the perfect storm. Jonathan was beaming, rambling on about the future, about franchising the restaurant concept. "We did it, Aubrey. Can you believe it? We did it." He was looking at her with such open, unguarded admiration. And in his eyes, she didn't see a boss or an heir. She saw a man whose approval she had craved her entire life without ever admitting it. The time for games, for quiet observation, was over. The secret daughter reveal was coming, whether she was ready or not. He poured them both a glass of expensive champagne to celebrate. As he handed her a glass, he said, "You know, my father never thought I had it in me. Tonight feels like the first time I've ever really made him proud." He was so vulnerable, so open. And Aubrey knew that her secret was a ticking bomb in the middle of his hard-won victory. She couldn't let him build a future on a foundation of lies. She owed him the truth. The man he had become deserved it. She took a shaky breath, her heart pounding against her ribs. "Jonathan," she started, her voice barely a whisper. "There's something you need to know. The reason I'm so good at what I do, the reason I care so much about this place, it's not just about the work." He looked at her, confused, his smile fading. The atmosphere in the kitchen shifted from celebration to suspense. This was it. The final, shocking turn in the hotel drama unfolds. "We met a long time ago," she continued, her eyes locked on his. "Or you met my mother. In college." Her name was Sarah. She saw a flicker of distant, hazy recognition in his eyes, a ghost from a past head long since buried. And then she delivered the final blow, the words that would change both of their lives forever. "She never told you. But she was pregnant when you left, Jonathan. I'm your daughter." The words hung in the air, shattering the silence. The champagne glass slipped from his fingers, crashing to the floor. The sound echoed in the cavernous kitchen. He just stared at her, his face a mask of utter disbelief, shock, and dawning horror. The father-daughter surprise was no longer a future possibility, it was a devastating present reality. The man who had just found his purpose was now facing a past that would redefine everything he thought he knew about himself. The silence that followed her revelation was a living thing. It was heavier than any argument they'd ever had. Jonathan's face cycled through a storm of emotions so fast it was like watching lightning. First, stunned disbelief. He shook his head, a humorless laugh escaping his lips. "No, that's not possible. That's insane. This had to be a joke. A cruel trick." But the unwavering, tear-filled gaze of Aubrey White told him it was anything but. This was the raw, brutal truth of the estranged family twist. Then came the anger, a hot, defensive rage. Anger at her for keeping this secret, for letting him make a fool of himself. "You've known this whole time? This whole time you've been watching? Me? Judging me?" The sense of betrayal was sharp, cutting through the shock. He felt like his entire redemption journey, the fragile self-respect he had just started to build, was a lie, a performance for an audience of one. The heir's redemption arc suddenly felt like a fraud. But beneath the anger, a deeper, colder emotion was taking root. Heartbreak. The anger was a shield, but the heartbreak was the wound. His mind raced, replaying the last few months, but now through this new, devastating lens. Her defiance, her reluctant respect, their partnership. It was all reframed. He wasn't just looking at his star chef, he was looking at the daughter he never knew. And with that realization came the crushing weight of 20+ years of absence. All the missed moments flooded his consciousness in a tidal wave of regret. First steps, first words, birthdays, scraped knees, graduations. An entire life had been lived without him. He wasn't just stunned by the news, he was gutted by the loss. He looked at this brilliant, strong, incredible woman before him and realized he had missed everything. This wasn't just a surprise, it was the theft of a lifetime of memories he never knew he was supposed to have. The process of healing old wounds would have to start with this giant, gaping new one. He stumbled back, leaning against a steel counter for support, his own legs betraying him. The hotel, his redemption, their success. It all faded into the background. All he could see was a ghost of a life he should have had. The anger at her dissipated, replaced by a profound hollow ache directed at himself. The careless, reckless boy he had been in college had created a consequence far greater than a hangover or a bad grade. He had created a life, and then walked away from it. He looked at Aubrey, truly seeing her for the first time, and the only thing he could manage to choke out was a single heartbroken word: why? It wasn't a question of accusation anymore, it was a plea. A desperate need to understand how his life had taken this turn without him even knowing. The journey toward forgiveness and family would have to navigate through this vast, uncharted territory of shock and regret. The aftermath of the reveal was not a gentle, heartwarming hug. It was awkward, painful, and messy. There were days of charged silence, of Jonathan avoiding Aubrey, and of Aubrey regretting she'd ever said anything at all. How do you even begin to build a bridge over a 20-year canyon of absence? The idea of becoming a second-chance family felt like an impossible dream when they could barely look at each other without seeing the ghosts of what they'd lost. Jonathan wrestled with his own demons. He felt an immense guilt, but also a lingering resentment. How could he be a father? He didn't know how. He had just learned to be a responsible man. But walking away was not an option, not this time. Looking at Aubrey, he saw not only the daughter had missed, but also the one person who had seen him at his worst and still, somehow, helped him become better. The thought of losing her now, after just finding her, was unbearable. Aubrey, for her part, struggled with the new dynamic. She had spent months observing him from a distance, and now he was her father. He started trying too hard, asking awkward personal questions, trying to cram a lifetime of fatherhood into a few days. It was suffocating. Their unceasing professional partnership was gone, replaced by this clumsy, fragile attempt at a personal one. The path from rivalry to reunion had taken a sharp, unexpected turn into uncharted territory. The one thing that held them together was the hotel. It was their common ground, the project they had both poured their souls into. When they talked about menus or marketing, they could almost forget the monumental truth that lay between them. The work became their therapy, a neutral space where they could reconnect. Their commitment to redemption through work was now the only thing keeping their nascent relationship from falling apart. Slowly, tentatively, they started talking. Not just about the hotel, but about the past. He asked about her childhood. She asked about her mother and him. Each conversation was like carefully removing a piece from a Jenga tower, hoping the whole thing wouldn't collapse. It was a struggle. There were tears, misunderstandings, and moments of raw, painful honesty. But for the first time they were struggling together. They were committed to the hard work of healing old wounds. They made a pact. They would save the hotel, and in the process, they would try to figure out what they were to each other. Father and daughter? Strangers? Partners? Maybe all three. It was a messy, imperfect commitment, but it was a start. The hotel's future and their family's future were now intertwined. A dual project of reconstruction and hope. A true test of the power of forgiveness and family. The grand reopening of the Elysian Grand was more than just a party with fancy champagne and local dignitaries. It was a testament to transformation. The building itself gleamed, a perfect blend of classic elegance and modern style, a physical manifestation of the legacy versus loyalty battle that had finally found harmony. But the real transformation was in the two people standing at the entrance, greeting guests with a shared, quiet confidence. Jonathan and Aubrey. For Jonathan, this night was the final chapter in his heir's redemption arc. He stood tall, not with the borrowed arrogance of a billionaire's son, but with the earned confidence of a man who had built something real. He had faced his failures, his past, and his own character flaws, and come out the other side. Seeing the hotel thriving, the staff happy, and his daughter by his side was a victory sweeter than any his father's money could buy. A billionaire's son transformed was no longer a possibility, it was a fact. For Aubrey, the evening was a surreal dream. She had taken a job to find a ghost and ended up finding a father. The journey had been tumultuous, filled with disappointment and pain, but it had led here. She stood not as a secret observer, but as a co-creator, a partner. Looking at Jonathan, she no longer saw just the man who was missing, but the man who had fought his way back. This celebration was the beginning of their second chance family, The speeches that night were telling. The mayor praised the hotel's revival. Jonathan's father gave a short, gruff, but visibly proud speech. But then Jonathan took the stage. He didn't talk about profit margins or market share. He talked about people. He thanked the staff, calling them the heart of the hotel. And then he looked at Aubrey. And none of this, he said, his voice thick with emotion, would have been possible without the vision, toughness, and integrity of my partner and my daughter, Aubrey. A collective gasp went through the room. That public acknowledgement was everything. It was not a secret daughter reveal born of shock, but a proud declaration of family. It was the ultimate moment of forgiveness and family, a public step in healing old wounds. The applause that followed was not just for the hotel's success, but for the raw human story of connection and redemption that everyone had just witnessed. It was a perfect, cathartic end to the long and difficult hotel drama unfolds. As the party swirled around them, Jonathan and Aubrey shared a quiet look. The road ahead wouldn't be perfect. They had years of lost time to navigate, but they had a foundation, built on mutual respect and a shared purpose. The reopening wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. A celebration of the fact that sometimes, the most broken things, be it a hotel or a family, can be rebuilt into something even stronger and more beautiful than before. And so the doors of the Elysian Grand are open once more, not just as a hotel, but as a symbol of rebirth. What a powerful journey from a bitter, estranged family twist to the fragile beginnings of a second chance family. It's a profound reminder that our lives are not defined by the mistakes we've made in the past, but by the courage we show in trying to fix them. The story of Jonathan and Aubrey shows us that true wealth isn't about money or legacy. It's about connection, forgiveness, and growth. This narrative was filled with powerful moments: the shock of the secret daughter reveal, the slow burn of the heir's redemption arc, and the difficult path toward healing old wounds. Which part of this story resonated with you the most? Was it seeing Jonathan's transformation, or Aubrey's strength in facing a past she never asked for? It's a testament to the fact that our greatest challenges often hold the key to our most meaningful transformations. We would love to hear what you think down in the comments. Did you expect the story to end this way, or were you hoping for a different outcome? What did you think of the final scene at the reopening? Let us know if you were satisfied with how their journey from rivalry to reunion unfolded. Your perspective is what makes this community so special, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts. If this story of a billionaire's son transformed and the daughter he never knew moved you, please show your support by giving this video a like and sharing it with someone who appreciates a story with real heart. And of course, if you want more compelling tales of drama, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds of family, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching.